Hey adventurers, so today, a little bit of a different day. I've decided to start doing videos about, first of all, I'll tell you what the video is. I'm going to be giving my thoughts and kind of like a review on Dune. I have decided that if I am going to be doing movie or TV stuff that is adapted from books, it will be on a different day, so that's what this is. So I'll still have my Monday and Thursday videos that are as normal, and then I'll have this video, the movies or TV shows on a separate day. And it won't be every week, it'll just be whenever I have something to talk about. So let's get right into my thoughts on Dune. I went into the movie having heard that it was really good, that people really liked it, and that people thought it was a great adaptation of the book, and that it was very well done, and that it was actually a good movie besides all that. So I was very excited to go into it still with my hopes being pretty low, because if I get my hopes up, then I'm almost always disappointed. So I had my hopes low, but I was excited to see what happened with it, and it blew me away. It was the same story as from the book, and it was done in such a good way, such a accurate, faithful way to the book. And I mean, there was some differences, and we'll get into those in a little bit, but it was just overall, like, I just was very happy and pleased with how close to the book it was, and that was very good to see. There's one specific scene that I can remember in my brain that they left out from the book to the movie. Usually the scenes were left out. They may have been tweaked a little bit, but they did it in a way that either replaced the scene with something else that served the same purpose, or else they just moved it around a little bit to continue the narrative of the story, to keep it flowing and keep people entertained in the movie. I didn't have issues with those ones. The differences and changes that were made to the way things played out, to the way the scenes were, stuff like that, it was done simply because it's a different medium, and the movie format is a very different format than books. Things like, you can't see thoughts, you can't visually show what somebody is thinking. There's tricks to do it a little bit, but for the most part you can't really just look into their head as they're thinking through processing things so much. So there was a little bit of that had to be tweaked for the movie, but it was done for the sake of telling a story through a movie rather than to change the story. So I was okay with that. They gender swapped one character, the Imperial ecologist person. They gender swapped that character. It didn't cause an issue because the gender wasn't important to what the character was. It was the role of the character was important to the story, so it didn't really cause an issue with that. Normally I don't care for gender swaps, but this one it didn't matter with. They didn't really explain what mentats were, or what really even who they were, how they were used or anything like that. They did include the mentats, but they didn't really explain what they were. They may get to that in a different, or in Dune Part 2, but we shall see. I did notice that there was quite a bit of telling rather than showing, but it was done again because there's so much information in the book that has to be given to the audience to understand what's going on. So there was a little bit that was done because the audience needed to know this information, and so I can understand it when it has to be done that way, and they can't really incorporate it into telling the actual story. So they did it in a way that was telling, but what they did was they would do it so that it was telling to the audience, but also telling to the characters in the story, so that information that the characters wouldn't already know, so that they could learn how to proceed with the book, or with the story, and I like that. I thought that worked really well. The soundtrack was pretty good. In the movie, it was really good. There's only a few songs now that I'm out of the movie, or a few pieces of soundtrack that are, now that I'm outside of the movie, that I was thinking, or that I can go back to and remember, oh, this moment, this piece of music was very important. So music wasn't the greatest, but I thought it was really well done for the movie itself. Outside the movie, it's whatever, I think, but it fit the movie really well. The casting, when I was reading the book, I would think, because I'd seen the trailer already, so I'd think back to who they had cast for those characters, and I'd be like, yep, that fits, yep, that fits, yep, that fits. So I would, pretty much everybody who was cast in those roles, I loved them being cast in those roles. Oscar Isaac as Leto was absolutely perfect. The only person that I think I probably associated with the role more than Oscar Isaac would have been Jared Leto. That's probably because his name is Leto. So, like, that's the only thing with Oscar Isaac being cast, and I think he did a great job. Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica was great. Jason Momoa, Josh Brolin, Javier Bardem, all those people were phenomenal in their roles. I thought Javier Bardem, as soon as I saw him as Stilgar, I was like, he's perfect for Stilgar. Stellan Skarsgård as Baron Harkonnen is like great. Stellan Skarsgård is a great actor, so I'm very, very happy with his casting as well. David Dastmalchian, he's one of those actors that every time I see it just makes me happy because he's so good and he's so underrated. Dave Bautista also fit the role really well. Dave Bautista isn't the greatest actor, but the character that he's playing, you don't need a great actor. You need somebody with the presence that Dave Bautista has. So I thought he worked well there too. The only two characters that when I was reading the book, I was like, I'm not sure if these actors will work perfectly in these roles, were Zendaya and Timothée Chalamet. I don't know however his name is pronounced. Zendaya, I was thinking, okay, she fits the role Chani pretty well. I thought she would do a pretty good job, but Timothée I wasn't sure about. I was kind of worried that he wouldn't quite work in the role. I could see that he physically looked like the character, as the character was described in the book, but I wasn't sure if I thought he could pull off being that character. And I thought, after watching the movie, I was like, yeah, he did it. He won me over with his performance. He did it really, really well. So I'm very happy to see that as well. The designs of the spaceships and the locations were absolutely incredible. I loved how the spaceships looked like they would actually withstand space. Yeah, the spaceships that we have on Earth are not really spaceships in that same way, designed for traveling between planets yet. That is what's being worked on. But I liked how these spaceships in this story that's very, very different from Star Wars or Star Trek or any of these other stories that are set in space. It was very different. The look of the ships was very different, and I liked it because they felt like they belonged in that world, in the world that was being established, that was being set up. The ships, they were blocky, they were bulky, they're just, they still looked awesome. There was one scene where it looks like a bunch of chess rooks were just coming down, and I was like, that looks awesome. It was just so cool to see all the different visually the movie was stunning. But the ships I just thought worked really well. The big carrier ships, beautiful. Some of it, I can't describe it to you. It looks so good. I think my favorite design by far though is the Ornithopters, because they literally looked like dragonflies, and that's all I wanted. I want these Ornithopters to look like dragonflies, because in the book, when I was reading them, I didn't really have a good picture of them. I didn't know what they looked like. I knew they weren't helicopters. It was so obvious that they weren't helicopters. But I was thinking about them, and it's like, there's gotta be some look to them that fits perfectly. And then I saw them, and they look like dragonflies, and I'm like, this is it, this is perfect. As I mentioned, the locations, the cities, Caladan's the type of planet that I would like to live on. It's that same type of planet as Naboo or Alderaan from Star Wars. Both of those are in many ways similar to Caladan, and it's the type of planet that I would love to live on, because it's basically the type of planet that Alaska is already. And so that's what I like, and so I loved seeing Caladan. Arrakis, Dune, beautiful, well done. It looks like desert, but the city on it, the way that the sand had built up in certain locations, it was like, this is exactly how sand would build up in those locations. It would be in corners, and it would be just like things that are so obvious, but people could get wrong so easily. And so I was very happy to see all that stuff too. It all looked so good. Okay, so I was I'm editing the Dune, my thoughts on Dune video, and I remember talking to my brother about Dune a little bit, because he'd watched the movie, he hasn't read the book. And so I've kind of decided, since I have read the book and watched the movie, and he hasn't read the book but he's watched the movie, to give a little bit of his thoughts a little bit, just so we can have a bit of a more balanced take on the movie, I guess, since he doesn't know the story, the entire thing. So what he said was that he was a little bit underwhelmed by it, and that he expected a little bit more from the movie. Kind of like they started it and there was slow build up, and then bam, everything happened right at once, and they didn't really have time to continue and go on with more. So that was kind of like his overall opinion. He said it was hard to hear the dialogue most of the time, and I agree. I do agree with that. I thought that there were plenty of times where the dialogue audio could have been boosted a little bit to balance it a little bit better. It wasn't bad. I didn't have any issue with it, but that may also be because I knew kind of what the dialogue was supposed to be from reading the book, and so that part wasn't an issue either. The other thing is that he thought it was a little bit over dim at times. Visually it looked really good, but it seemed to lack a little bit of story depth maybe, although he did mention that that could just be because he hadn't read the book and so he didn't know what happened in the future. And maybe for those of us who have read the book, those of us who have who know what's happening, what's going to happen in the future, stuff like that, it maybe made a little bit more sense. And I think I could probably agree with him on that, because I definitely understood everything that went on because I knew it was coming. So there's probably some of that in there. The other thing is he said it didn't seem like a standalone movie. Obviously it's Dune Part 1, but it seemed like there needed to be more to it than just what was there. It didn't have that typical 3-act structure. It was mostly just setup, and I agree that it was definitely more setup and build up for the second Dune Part 2. I agree with him. I definitely think there was quite a bit that could have been improved in many ways. The lighting was a bit dim. I thought the lighting worked well with the setting, with the story that was being told. I thought the audio could have been a little bit improved as well, or the dialogue audio specifically. And then the 3-act structure thing, yeah, I agree with. It was, for the most part, just set up, building the world, laying the groundwork for the second film to really blow it out of the water and really dive into the aftermath of this first part. And so I like that, but I can see where he's coming from for sure. And I thought that it would probably be useful for you guys to hear somebody's thoughts who hadn't read the book, but who watched the movie. And the other thing about him is he's a pretty big movie buff. He understands movies, he understands storytelling. It's kind of his thing to understand. So take my opinion, it was amazing, it was great, it was exactly what I wanted, with a little bit of grain of salt, because I did know the story. I do know what's going to happen, so there is that as well. The one thing that I was disappointed in, but I knew it wasn't going to happen from the beginning, was we didn't get any of Gurney Halleck singing, and that made me sad, because I love when people can sing. And I mean, I don't know if Josh Brolin can sing in real life or not, but man, I wanted to see Gurney Halleck sing. It would just be like, it would have been so cool. So those are my thoughts on Dune. I thought it was great. My thought as I came out of the theater was like, they did it. They actually did it. They managed to adapt faithfully a book that would have been very, very hard to adapt, and I was very impressed. I've been talking to Kate multiple times recently and just been like, I just want an epic series that is adapted faithfully, and Dune was it, so I'm very, very happy with it. People say it's the first half of the book. It's not quite, it's just over half. It's not quite 3/4, but it's between, let's see, I don't remember exactly where it's at, but it covers just over half of the book. It told the story slowly enough that you could understand it, but wasn't so slow that it was boring. I've heard the complaint that there's only one joke in it, and it's right at the very beginning, so savor it. I was like, you shouldn't need jokes in a story. That shouldn't be important to you. I mean, maybe it is, but it shouldn't be what keeps you interested in the story. I was very, very happy that it had held the seriousness that Dune should hold, but it also wasn't dark and gritty and just oppressive. It was still Dune, it was still light, it was still happy, there was still some good things that happened, but there was a lot of the bad things that had, like, it just very well adapted the book. It didn't need humor to tell the story. It wasn't bland story that needed humor to spice it up or anything like that. It was just, this is what you're gonna get, and it works really well, and I very much appreciated that. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite Adventure. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you guys enjoyed the video, please like and comment down below. Thanks for watching. Stay warm.